The Statue of Liberty, perhaps New York City's most famous landmark, symbol of immigration and of the Big Apple. But Lady Liberty hasn't been in New York Harbor forever. A monument to the United States on behalf of the nation of France was first conceived in 1865. 10 years later, Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi was commissioned to create the monument. The United States was to build the pedestal and France the statue. The unveiling was planned to coincide with the centennial of the United States in 1876, but it was not to be. Instead, only the hand and torch made it to the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition. In 1883, the statue's head was completed and displayed in Paris. That same year, Emma Lazarus wrote the poem New Colossus as a fundraiser. The statue was completed in 1884 and shipped to the United States in pieces. Its arrival in New York Harbor in 1885 was met with much fanfare, and the statue was completed in the fall of 1886, officially known as Liberty Enlightening the World. From the beginning, officials had plans to light the statue at night, but several options, including floodlights, were quickly rejected. Finally came the idea to have the originally solid torch serve as a real-life lantern. Over the years, a series of holes were cut in the torch, and eventually a red glass pyramid added to simulate the red interior of a flame. From the very beginning, the Statue of Liberty was considered an official lighthouse and under the jurisdiction of the United States Lighthouse Service. She was also the first electrically lit lighthouse in the country. She had as many as 3 assistant keepers to help head keeper Albert E. Littlefield, who was hired for his specialized electrical knowledge. All of the keepers and their families lived on the island. But her time as a lighthouse was relatively short-lived. The U.S. Lighthouse Service never really considered her an aid to navigation, and often she was not listed as such on harbor maps. In 1901, she was transferred to the War Department, which already controlled Bedloe Island, much to the relief of the Lighthouse Service. In 1924, both the statue and the Civil War-era fort she stood upon were named national landmarks, and in 1933, she was transferred to the National Park Service. In 1984, in anticipation of her centennial year, the Statue of Liberty underwent an enormous restoration effort. The largest freestanding scaffolding in the world was built to work on her exterior, and her original torch was replaced with a solid gold-leaf copper torch as Bartholdi had intended. The Statue of Liberty reopened in 1986, just in time for Liberty Weekend, celebrating her 100th birthday as a New York City landmark. Today, the Statue of Liberty's time as a lighthouse is largely forgotten, but even though she is no longer an official aid to navigation, she remains one of the most beloved and enduring of the New York Harbor landmarks. This history of the Statue of Liberty was produced by the Hudson River Maritime Museum as part of the RiverWise project. To learn more, visit hudsonriverwise.org.